let's run Joe Lieberman's clip here. Joe Lieberman should not, and Jill's been saying this for a while now, should not be called a Democrat by anybody, by the press, by us. We should stop it. Because the guy, as you're about to hear in this clip, of course on Fox News Channel, or as Keith Olbermann now calls him, the Fox Noise Channel, he flat out says on foreign policy, I'm a Republican. And then in 2008, he threatens to vote for a Republican president. This guy does not in any way, shape, or form represent the Democrats anymore and should never get another Democratic vote in the state of Connecticut. Here he is on Fox Noise Channel.
Looking at the three frontrunners, Clinton, Obama, Edwards, all of them in varying degrees expressing their opposition to the war and wanting to end our involvement there.
This is Chris Wallace.
Could you support any presidential candidate who you didn't feel was committed to victory in Iraq?
Well, you make a decision based on a whole range of issues, but obviously the positions that some candidates have taken in Iraq troubles me. Obviously, I will be looking at what positions they take in the larger war against Islamist terrorism. I mean, here's where I am, and maybe why I am genuinely an independent. I agree more often than not with Democrats on domestic policy. I agree more often than not with Republicans on foreign and defense policy. I'm an independent.
And we got less than a minute left. Yes. Joe Lieberman grew up in John Bailey's Connecticut, Democratic vice presidential nominee. You're saying you might vote Republican in 2008?
I am, because we have so much on the line, both in terms of the Islamist terrorists who are an enemy as brutal as the fascists and communists we faced in the last century, and we have great challenges here at home to make our economy continue to produce good jobs, to deal with our crises in healthcare, education, immigration, energy. I want to choose the person that I believe is best for the future of our country. What I'm saying is what I said last year and what I think the voters said in November. Party is important, but more important is the national interest, and that's the basis that I will decide who to support for president.
Look, we can sit here and criticize him for his opinion on the war and his opinion on who he decides to support for the war, but I really I don't think we can criticize him for betraying his party. He switched over to being an independent. I really think you have to criticize the Connecticut voters for not being able to clearly see through his decision at that point.
Jill, I agree with you. That's the bottom line on it. And at this point, the man should not be called a Democrat anymore. And of course, the only part where I have a slight disagreement with you is, look, he's being clear on the record now. He's saying, okay, hold on. He's saying, look, I'm a Republican in foreign policy and defense issues. That's literally, you just heard it yourself, literally what he said, right? And furthermore, he's saying, that matters to me more, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm likely to vote for a Republican candidate in 08. He certainly said, he said, I am, when asked the question, would you consider voting for a Republican in 08? And then, of course, by the way, he also did a little trick where he said, I think this war on terrorism is really important, that's why I'm going to vote for a Republican. What, the Democrats don't think it's really important? So kind of F you on that. But the part where you're slightly wrong, Jill, is that during the campaign, he wasn't saying this. He was lying.
No.
And I have a quote for you.
I agree.
Okay? In the campaign, this is what Joe Lieberman said. Quote, I want Democrats to be back in the majority in Washington, elect a Democratic president in 2008. This man and his supporters will frustrate, meaning Ned Lamont, will frustrate and defeat our hopes of doing that. It turns out, no, Joe Lieberman will frustrate and defeat our hopes of putting a Democrat in the office in 2008, because he might not even vote for it or her.
I agree, but Joe Lieberman spent years now involved in this war, actively involved vocally in this war. And I just think that the people of Connecticut were a little naive to listen to some of the things that their candidate said during an election. I mean, I think anything that you hear during an election campaign, you have to take with a grain of salt. And unfortunately, they relied too heavily on the short amount of time where he said that he wanted Democrats in office and he didn't support the administration in this war, compared to his track record over these last few years. I mean, I think it was naive and irresponsible of the people of Connecticut, because he came out clearly saying that he was an independent.
I agree with you. You win. It's true. No, the people of Connecticut were definitely deceived. There's no question about that, and they should have known better. His track record was very clear.